everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tech Done Different. I'm your host, Ted Harrington, and with me here today is a very dear friend, a classmate from Georgetown, Jeff Civillico. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Super pumped to be here, Ted. Thanks for having me, man.
So, Jeff, I'm going to brag about you a little bit, and then you can brag about you if you want to.
I love it.
So, Jeff, you are a world champion juggler. You had a strip, you had a show on the Las Vegas Strip. You're an MC for live events. And now this like super sought after MC for virtual events. You serve Georgetown as, I believe, on the board of governors. You started a charity that's this amazing thing that I definitely want to get into and ask you about. So really my first question to you is, what the hell? What are the rest of us supposed to, like, how are we supposed to keep up with you?
You're way too kind, man. You're way too kind. I don't know. I've just, going back to Georgetown, I remember graduating, and I remember I had always been entertaining ever since I was a little kid. And so all through high school, all through college, I was doing shows in DC. I was performing on cruise ships during the summer. And I saw everybody else going on these more traditional career paths, doctor, lawyer, merchant, chief, the kind of more traditional road. And I thought, I really love what I'm doing right now. I'm good at it. I'm making good money. And I want to just see how far and how long I can go doing this. I want to continue to up the game and keep pushing it. I don't want to be bored creatively. I want to do well financially. So I thought, if there's ever a time when this just isn't working, like, okay, cool, I'll go to law school, or I'll go transition to sales. People always say, oh my God, you'd be amazing at real estate, sales, any capacity, because it's a lot of people skills and connections and networking and hustle and all that. And fortunately, I'm now 37, so 16 years out, and I haven't had to do that. I haven't had any desire to do that, because fortunately things are still going well, despite a lot of crazy roller coaster rides.
Yeah, indeed. So let's talk about your success, or your experience in being a performer on the Las Vegas Strip. You certainly achieved the pinnacle of success in what it was you're setting out to go do. I mean, that's what everyone wants to do. They want to be a Vegas headliner, and you did it. And you did it at a young age too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the requirements to do that, because as I understand it, many of the things that you had to do are directly applicable to some of the same challenges that our audience has, who are not themselves entertainers.
Wait, are you telling me that this audience isn't for jugglers, magicians, ventriloquists, acrobats?
Well, maybe we should have it become a jugglers podcast moving forward.
That's right.
You might have to introduce me. You're the only juggler I know. So
yeah, done.
But I wanted to ask you about the People's Arch. So maybe you could tell our audience about this concept and what you were up against and why you had to do it.
Sure. I love it. And I love that you know the People's Arch. I believe you donated to the People's Arch, which is pretty awesome. So thank you for that. Your $10 was very much appreciated. Really, I asked for a $10 donation in exchange for tickets to my show to crowdfund my set. And I'll get back to that, about why I had to crowdfund my set. It wasn't just because I had no money, which also is true. It was literally a space issue. I was an afternoon show, and afternoon shows are not as well regarded, highly perceived as the evening shows, because you can't charge as much for them, right? They don't employ as many crew and the staff. So it was like, yeah, you can do your show here, but like, here's your space. And it was this little corner cage, where I could like put my trunk of props. Like, that was it. And I'm looking at this massive stage, and I'm thinking, I need a set. Like, everybody else had sets. There was like, the band was playing a multi-level, right, rotating stages, and this stage just swallowed me, right? Because I'm this little shrimpy guy in this 800 seat venue. And so I started brainstorming the idea of an inflatable set, because I had seen that Elton John had an inflatable set at Coliseum at Caesar's Palace. So I started designing this inflatable set, and I hadn't ever seen anybody crowdfunding a set, but I knew I had a good story with always wanting to have a Las Vegas show, and I thought people could get behind it. And so I created this crowdfunded set where for $10 you got tickets to the show, and then when you came to the show, you got to sign the arch. which was pretty cool. So it was this big 40-foot inflatable arch that filled up the entire stage with color, and kind of became a running gag throughout my show, because the show started with me like with a bike pumping up the set, and towards the end of this big crescendo, the spotlight would hit me as I'm pumping up like the last couple seconds of the set. And so then periodically throughout the show, I would have to run back over and like pump up the set, so I would bring a kid up, and I would have the kid just on the side, like pumping it, and I'd be doing my show, and like I'd look over and I'd see the kid would stop, and I'd be like, what are you doing, bro? Come on, like, let's go, right? And so just ways to be very authentic. I wasn't trying to be somebody that I wasn't, right? I was a one-man self-produced show with a very limited budget, and so I just tried to use that to my advantage. But back to Vegas in general, you mentioned that was the goal, right? And that really was. Ever since I was a kid, I dreamed of having my own show on the Las Vegas Strip, and that's I think it's a testament to the power that Vegas has as a brand, because I'm 10 years old doing shows in my kitchen, and I'm like, I gotta make it to Vegas, baby. Like, I gotta get to Vegas. Like, that's incredible. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what Vegas is, but I knew if you had your own show in Las Vegas, that was like an official stamp, that you were a great performer. You've made it. And so that was always the goal. Then when I got to Vegas in my early 20s, I realized this is gonna be a little harder than I thought. Most people don't go to Las Vegas and then try to get on the show on the Strip, right? They have a career that, let's say, they tour and then they like park it in Vegas for a while, right? It doesn't really work like that you go to Vegas and like go to auditions for a 7:00 show at the Venetian. You know what I mean? Like that, it doesn't really work that way. But I tried to just really be smart about what I was seeing, and from the marketing perspective and from budgets, and I tried to come at it from a different way. And I learned a lot by being part of another show in Vegas first, where I got to just kind of see what was happening. And it was one of these classic situations in Las Vegas where performers get paid if the show makes money, right? Like, that's a lot of what it is. It's like, hey, you get to perform 6 days a week, for fun. And if the show makes money, like, you'll make some money too. And it's like, okay, great. That's a lot of how this worked, right? Or you get some guarantee. Like, I used to get paid $25 a show when I first started at the Flamingo to be in a bigger show, right? Obviously, it's not even enough to live on. It's like a stipend. So anyway, so I was fortunate enough to be a part of a show where I didn't have any control over the budget, but I could see what was happening, and I could learn what they were doing to market and promote the show. And they made what I thought were a lot of mistakes in the marketing promotion. Just like I was watching where they were dumping money, and it just seemed like so stupid to me. Like, why would you pay 20 grand for a billboard at the Las Vegas airport with the name of our show on it when nobody knows who we are, right? Or what we do. So it's one thing if you see a billboard that says like Backstreet Boys, because then your mind creates the advertising for you. You're like, oh yeah, like guys dancing around, the dance moves, like, oh, bye, bye, bye. Like, you kind of know what that means. But if you see, the show is called Amazed. So if you see a show called Amazed and there's like picture of me, picture of a guy, picture of a magician, like, you don't know what that is, right? And you don't care. Your mind doesn't complete the rest of the marketing. So anyway, I would see things like that where I'm like, that's a poor use of marketing dollars. So I was able to get this experience learning about marketing while I wasn't spending any of my own money. And after that show went under, because it was obvious it was going to go under, I learned a lot, and I thought, okay, I think I could do this better myself if I were in control of the budget. So that was kind of the seed. And then from there, I just thought about, how do I do this as a self-produced one-man show? And it was all about the story. It was all about the narrative, right? Because you have these big corporations like the Cirque du Soleil, et cetera. There's no personality there. There's no personal connection to any of those performers, right? People want to see a Cirque show. They don't want to see that person. So I made it kind of a goal of mine to get to know every ticket broker on the Strip. I would walk the Strip every day with like duffel bags full of Jolly Ranchers and taking selfies with everybody, do little tricks here and there, and get these personal connections. I would go to call centers and I would perform. I would go to charity events. I'd be on local TV. I'd do radio shows. And so when you're the guy on the rack card, actually on the advertisement, there's power there, because, you look at like Chris Angel on the rack card, like Chris Angel's not going to be stopping by the tickets for tonight booth, right? So And no knock against him, like he doesn't have to, right? He's made it to a point where everybody knows what that means, who that is. Whereas for me, when I would build these personal connections with these ticket brokers, with these agents, these concierge community that was selling my show, they would recommend me to the family of 4 that walks up from Des Moines and says, like, I want to see a show. Like, who should we go see? And they say, well, this guy's really awesome. He's kind of a hidden gem. It's a low price point. It's an afternoon show, so you can still go to this dinner that you want or see this other show. And so they started pushing me, which was great. So it really was kind of a guerrilla marketing style, word of mouth, where I wanted people to want me to succeed and to really kind of push me as the underdog, one-man self-produced show, because that is increasingly rare in Las Vegas. You have the Britney Spearses, the J-Los, and now the Raiders and the Vegas Golden Knights. You have these massive brands with massive budgets and marketing teams behind them. It's very rare to have a one-man self-produced variety show. So, just a little context there about Vegas.
Yeah, it's interesting, the themes that I see drawn out of what you just described. Certainly, hustle being one of them, another being building relationships and using those in order to overcome constraints that you saw. I mean, certainly anyone listening to this show has constraints, whether that's they don't have enough people, they don't have enough budgets, they don't have enough time, whatever they don't have enough of, that is omnipresent in every company in the world. And you're revealing some strategies for how you've dealt with that by being creative and sort of thinking differently. I mean, you were competing against Cirque du Soleil, right? And you've been able to do that. So when we think about, you're obviously very passionate about being an entertainer. And I know this from many, many years, almost 20 years now. Wow. Don't tell anybody that, but it's been 20 years. We've been
friends. See these grays? You see these grays?
I commented on your
grays in college. I know. I'm like a spotted dog. These patches. These were not here. These are Corona grays. These were not here like 6 months ago.
Very distinguished looking.
Yes. Yes.
You're the whatever that hair color, hair for men or whatever that is. You're like the guy on the box, like salt and pepper.
Just for men. Yeah.
That's what we want to look like. You're that.
Yeah. I need a monocle now.
So 20 years ago, you did not look like that. But so I'm of course applying some of what I know about you from having known you for a very long time, but these principles certainly revealed in what you were just talking about. You're very passionate about it. And that's sort of like it's almost overplayed, this idea of like, pursue your passion. And anytime I hear anyone say that, I'm always like, well, what the hell does that mean? How can someone get a paycheck with their passion? So if you look back on maybe your journey, what would the advice be to someone else who has a passion? Maybe they're passionate about security. Maybe they're passionate about technology. Maybe they're passionate about something else. Mm-hmm. What's the advice?
So this reminds me of Seth Godin. I love Seth Godin, big Seth Godin fan. I'm not going to try to claim this is my own, but he always says that passion is not project specific, it's people specific. And by that, he means that passionate people find ways to channel their passion. They find avenues that their passion pours through. And that I get this all the time, like, you're so lucky, you're so rare, like you knew what you wanted to do since you were 9, and that's, I'm not like that, right? You think of like, oh, this girl was like an ice skater and she's been following this one passion. She always wanted to be an Olympic gold medalist. Now she did it. Right. So like kind of, but not really, because I'm not passionate about juggling. Right. I'm not. I don't care about juggling. I care about connecting with people. And so what I learned from a very early age is that juggling was a medium. It was kind of a way that I could break the ice and connect with folks of all ages, races, backgrounds, genders, et cetera. So it was never about the juggling. It was about the people and the performing and the connecting. And now increasingly it's about the freedom that working for myself gives me. So yes, I've had a lot of great opportunities be directly tied to performing. Traveled the world, I did a show for Ericsson. I hosted their incentive trip in the Maldives. Like that was incredible. FedEx offices event in Portugal. And like, I could go on and on these great, amazing events. And I love that. But at the end of the day, I love being able to control my own schedule. And that's very important to me to work for myself. So when you talk about passion, I would say like, I know a lot of your audience is security folks, tech folks, right? Mostly. And maybe they are really passionate about what they do, and that's great. But maybe they are not specifically passionate about the X's and O's, right? The details, but they're passionate about making people feel safe or secure, or helping people build companies. And to build a great company, increasingly now today, you have to be very tech savvy. You have to have a really good sense of security, right? So maybe they're maybe they're passionate about allowing other people to build their dreams and employ multiple people and kind of change the world for the better through technology. Obviously, security is a huge piece of that. So I think my advice would be, don't be looking for the passionate project, like, oh, I got to find this thing that I'm passionate about, because honestly, it frustrates people, right? Because they get annoyed. They're like, this person's so lucky they have guitar, right? Or singing, or, even economics. Like, people are passionate about economics or epidemiology or whatever, right? Like, it doesn't have to be the childhood hobby that you turned into a career. I would say stop trying to find that and just focus on becoming a more passionate person, really like embracing life and what you want out of life. And I think the projects will naturally flow from that. The ways that you pour out your passion will kind of come naturally from that, once you have really learned to embrace life more and just being happy, like genuinely being happy every day, and knowing what you need to do to be happy, whether it's like meditating, working out, having a strong relationship, connecting with your peers, whatever that is for you.
Oh man, I love that. And that resonates really powerfully with me personally as well. Over the past few months, we've been going through this process with our company to really evangelize to everybody what the vision is and the mission and where we're going. And it's something that we've just wanted to continue to do better. And I feel like maybe we hadn't been doing as well in the past. And what was so interesting to me through this process, now this is a security consulting company. We're in the business of delivering security services. And what I heard from a lot of our people as we were having these discussions is they're like, I mean, yeah, I like security, but what I really like is, and then they talked about what we are doing for our customer. And it's exactly what you just said, right? It's a medium.
Yeah. Outcomes. Like they probably really passionate about the outcomes, right? About when you do a great job for somebody and they're super happy, or God, I mean, if they have a security breach, they're going to lose data, things, and you can fix that for them. You can solve their problem. Like, what's better than solving people's problems?
Oh man.
Nothing, I tell you. Yeah, seriously.
I'm going to put on a bumper sticker with Jeff Civillico. Yeah. So let's talk about making strategic decisions. You've obviously been making them throughout the course of your career. You've already enumerated a few of them. One of the ones that when you first told me about it, when I first heard about it, I was really almost surprised by, but then when you explained it, it was like, oh my God, this makes total sense to me. But you worked so hard to establish a show on the Las Vegas Strip, and then you voluntarily ended it.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about your thinking there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot more to do. Like, it was awesome. A decade on the Strip was enough. It was great. I loved it. It's kind of I feel like college, man. Some people are like, man, like, that was the best days of my life. It's like, I think, yeah, college was awesome, but like, I've had many better days than college. Like, I feel like my life's just gone up since college. College was awesome, but there's that sense of like holding on to the past, right? Or holding on, like, it's never going to be better than this. It's like, I don't believe that, right? And I think that's a bad way to look at life. And so for me, I loved having a show on the Strip, and all that could afford me, right, in terms of leverage, and being able to do things with that, right? So you say you've got a show on the Strip. I mean, I say this to my friends all the time, like, you're an entertainer, you're sitting on an airplane, and you say, oh, you're an entertainer, like, what do you do? If you say, oh, I do some shows around here and there, people are like, oh, that's cool. If you say, what do you do? I say, oh, I've got a show at the Flamingo. Like, you can see me 6 nights a week. People are like, right this way. Like, they just look at you a little differently, right? They're like, oh, like, this guy must be good. It's like an official stamp. Honestly, it's like I said, when I was 7 years old, it's an official stamp that you're good at what you do, and that people are aware of that. So anyway, Yeah, I voluntarily hung up the unicycles, hung up my shoes, from the show because I didn't want to ever be like a lifer. I didn't want to be somebody who, when you look at people, be like, yeah, you probably should have stopped doing that a few years ago, right? Because it happens pretty quick. Like, it's cliche, but I blinked and I was like on the strip for 10 years. Because it's kind of like Groundhog Day. Every day is the same. You always have the show in the back of your mind. So even if you have a 7 o'clock show, like you're at a barbecue with your friends, this and that, you're always kind of like a certain time, I've got to flip into show mode. Like whether it's 5 o'clock, I need to like go home, grab my stuff, do this, or go to the theater, warm up. And so it's hard to really be present and enjoy your life day to day when you have that show. And I could have like a killer day, right? I could wake up at 5 a.m. and do all these amazing things, but the world judges me on how I perform from 7 to 8:15. So if I have this killer day and I'm kind of exhausted and I'm like, oh man, I'm beat, and I don't give my best when everybody else is like, let's see what this kid can do, right? That's when they're all judging me. Then it affects in a negative way all of what I did during the day, right? So you really have to make sure that you're bringing your A game no matter what's going on in your life. So I just knew there was more out there. I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more speaking like you. The speaking circuit. I wanted to do more hosting of live events. I wanted to take the show on the road. The road is really fun until it's not, right? When you're on the road all the time, it's not, right? So I was on the road all the time before Vegas. And then in Vegas, I would occasionally go for an event here and there, but I kind of missed traveling and being on the road and taking the show to different groups of people all over the country and experiencing that again. So I just knew I had to. I knew it was. Here's actually, Ted. Here's how I knew it was the right thing to do, because I knew that my ego was going to miss it, and I was like, "That's not a good reason to keep doing your show on the Strip." So that you can drive by your billboards and be like, "Hey, that's me. Like, I've got a show on the Strip." Like, you can see your stuff at the airport when you land. All that stuff is just ego, right? So, like, it does feel weird living here, because the turnover is insane, right? Like, you have a show on the Strip for 10 years, and then the next week, like, it's like, who's that guy? Oh, he was like the juggling comedian guy. Like, yeah, I mean, there's 50 shows waiting in line to jump in your spot as soon as you stop, right? And all those rack cards and billboards and magazines and print ads and taxis and mobile trucks, like all that stuff, it's just gone. So again, I realized if the only reason I want to still be doing this is to satisfy that sense of like, oh yeah, like I'm successful. Look, I've got a show on the Strip. Then like, that's ridiculous. And I realized that that's the only reason I would be hanging on. So,
and that's a lifetime designation too. You're forever had a show on the Strip. So that's really self-aware and vulnerable even for you to look at that and to say, hey, my ego is what's keeping me there. And what I'm hearing you say is, I guess there's almost two things in that story. One is, it sounds like you're talking about, in order to move towards what the future holds for someone, they need to let go of the past. That's sort of one thing. And then the second thing I heard you say was, don't let your ego be the reason you stay stuck.
100%. Yeah. And it's funny the reaction I got, because I would say about 50% of people were like, why would you do such a thing? Like, that's crazy. Like, what do you have any idea how like lucky you are to be, you're living your dreams. Like, why would you do that? And then 50% were like, oh yeah, that's Jeff. Like, he did it. Like, he's on to the next thing. Like, if you look back at my career, I was doing, street shows, right? And then from street shows at theme parks. And then I left theme parks to try to get on cruise ships. And then I left cruise ships to go to Disney and to Orlando. And then I left Orlando to come to Vegas, right? So it's like, that's always been the way I have been. I've always been very forward thinking. And I do think it's so easy to get stuck. And I wasn't growing anymore. I wasn't growing as a business person, because I figured out the Vegas game in the last few years, especially. Like, I was like, okay, I know how to fill up my showroom. And that was the challenge. And then I figured creatively, I had openers come in via Skype. I had a GoPro that I would strap to my head and do like juggle vision, and show my view. I was doing cool things with technology. I crowdfunded my set. I was doing all sorts of like video interaction things. I was doing new bits. I was bringing different elements to the table. And at a certain point, I just thought, okay, I'm kind of stale creatively. I need to go to a different medium, a different platform.
So let's talk about adapting to change. Certainly everybody in the entire world has been impacted by what's happened with COVID and everything. You as someone who was in the live events business, both as having your show and then moving into, emceeing events and speaking and things like that. It almost, I'm a little fuzzy on the exact timeline, but I think they lined up to where you ended your show kind of right before COVID happened. How did you were like, I'm going to be on all these stages now. And everyone's like, no, you're not.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
You know what? My timing has not always been great, but my timing for ending my Vegas show was incredible. So my last show on the Strip was December 19th. So I went home for Christmas, and then, COVID happened starting in January. You could kind of the tremors and everything in China. So what happened was I thought, okay, after 10 years, I'm going to take a beat and I'm going to think about like, what do I really want to do? And whether that's write a book, do more speaking, focus more on my nonprofit, focus more on the corporate market, focus on hosting. There's a lot going on, making some online courses, maybe doing a seminar about how to produce a show in Las Vegas. There's all these performers that want to know about that marketing knowledge. So I thought about that. And then obviously COVID happened, and my source of income is shows still, right? Like it's people pay me to be at a certain stage at a certain date and time in a certain city. And my calendar was wiped. My calendar was wiped to zero. So all of my, just like everybody else's, right? All my income was gone. And so I kind of thought like, all right, I'm going to hold on the more, what does Jeff want? Like, what is my next 10 years going? I'm like, I need to figure out how to make money doing virtual, because no matter what, that's going to be here to stay in some form. And I'm always going to be entertaining, hosting, speaking in some capacity. I need to like figure out virtual, everything from creatively, figure out how I can communicate, connect, do some of my bits, create new bits, and then market it, right? And execute it. So it's everything from home studio to I used to use a different studio. Now I use a bigger studio in Las Vegas, and how to package that and market it. So anyway, I kind of put my like life plans on hold for more of the what does my next phase look like, and just figured out the virtual. Now here we are again at the start of 2021, and I'm very happy and comfortable doing virtual. Took a few months to really figure it out, and it was still a great year for me. Financially and creatively, professionally. I enjoyed it, learned a lot. And now I'm actually starting to think, okay, now I've got virtual bookings sprinkled throughout 2021. They're coming in steadily. This is my income now, supportive. So I'm getting back to like, what does Jeff want now? And I'm thinking about some of the questions that I was literally thinking about a year ago. And I will say our friends from Video Narrative are producing a special for me right now about my show, my last show. It's kind of like it's like The Last Dance, but with more juggling and less basketball. But really, it's like 10 years on the Strip, culminating in this last show. I had my final show videotaped with a 3-camera shoot at the Paris, Las Vegas, after 10 years. And this is a kind of a cool little teaser here. The street performer who picked me to be a volunteer when I was like 10 years old, that started everything for me, I actually flew him out to Vegas for my final show, and we performed together. We closed my last show after 10 years on the Strip. So it was really cool. We got a sit-down interview with him. There's some emotional moments. We went to the hospital during the day and did a show for my nonprofit, WinWin Entertainment. We performed for the kids at the hospital. So we spent the day hanging out together. And it was just like the most perfect storybook close to my 10-year run. So anyway, that's something now that, again, that project had been on hold for a year because the virtual thing, I just had to figure it out. And so now I'm getting back to like, you know what, I do want to commemorate that 10-year run on the Strip with a special that I'd love to pitch to Netflix, Amazon, etc. So maybe later this year you'll see you'll be able to see the Last Dance, the last juggle.
In the Last Dance, Michael Jordan, like every episode said, and I took that personal. And I'm looking forward to see what's going to be the thing that Jeff says. And so I decided to do it differently.
You're looking for the Scottie Pippen character, my assistant, my number two, who's like, who just kind of goes all out, gives the real deal.
That's great, man.
It's gonna be very controversial, Ted. This special is gonna be a lot of buzz, a lot of controversy around the last
controversy sells.
Last juggle.
Well, that's great. I mean, hearing a couple themes I think that I can extract out of what you just said that I think are really applicable to everyone listening are these ideas that sort of you had two things going on at the same time and you just switched between them based on the circumstances around you. One was you need to proactively be planning what your future is going to look like so that you can actually move towards it. But sometimes you have to change and adapt to what's happening immediately in front of you. Your income went to zero, which certainly happened to, pretty much every industry had some degree of that. So
and I'd like to say one more thing about that, Ted. Yeah. So it was interesting because seeing my peers react to COVID was very interesting to me. It was because everyone obviously was in a very different situation, and people say like, we're not in the same boat and we're in the same storm. Everybody's boat is different, which I agree with, right? Based on your personal professional situation. Some guys are like, I'm going to spend more time with my wife and write my book. And it's like, great. And some guys were like, I have 4 kids. Like I need to, make money doing virtual shows, right? I need to embrace this. So it was very interesting to see, but I tried to just be analytical about it and thought, okay, so this is what I do. I am a presenter. I'm an entertainer, host, speaker, and I'm 30 something, and I'm going to be doing this for like a long time, right? And I really enjoy it. Even if I could retire, like I'm going to want to keep being in front of people, connecting with people. And I thought this clearly is going to be here to stay, right? Like live events will clearly come back, but virtual will also clearly be here to stay for some capacity. So I just thought about it as a strategic move to say, who knows what my life holds? Like if I get married, have kids, maybe I would want to be able to do more virtual shows, be in a studio, not have to travel as much, right? Maybe it's for a certain fee, you get me in person. A certain fee is you'll do it virtually, right? And so again, I think it's just having that long-term thinking. Because I saw some guys in my world get really hurt because they were just thinking about it in like the next 6 months, and they weren't taking that longer-term view. So again, just thinking about your biz and your folks, like I think that's such an important point too. We get so stuck in the like day to day, like what's my income this month, next month, at least as a freelancer. Like I don't have a set job, so I'm constantly looking at my profit and loss statement every month and being like, I need some more stuff in here. This back half of the year is great, but again, just zooming out and thinking like, what is the next 6 months if I really embrace this? What does that the next 6 months mean for like my next 10 years? Could I partner with a studio? Could I buy them out? Could I build my own studio? Could rent out? So I'm talking about online courses. Maybe now I own the facility where the courses are being held and I rent out the spaces for speakers, for entertainers, even just like helping the studio transition. They used to market mostly to entertainers, to shows, right? Britney Spears, the dancers would come there and learn their routines and practice. Now they're marketing to corporations, to associations, to bring them in and stream their events virtually to all their attendees, because they see obviously that's happening now and that's their future. So anyway, I think that was a really good lesson. I was grateful to learn that. I think at this age, right, to know to kind of get knocked on your ass, like when you can recover and you can have the resiliency and the freedom and enough time to figure it out, because makes me think much more about being in control of my business, right? I know as a freelancer, I get booked by a lot of third-party agencies, bureaus, production companies, and that's great. And I'm very grateful for all that work. But I also now have really started direct booking myself much more, running Google ads, LinkedIn ads, Facebook ads, sales funnels, landing pages. Like I want to control my own destiny a little more, because we saw when an external threat like coronavirus happens, at the end of the day, it's like everybody's everybody's out for themselves, just kind of trying to keep their own lights on, keep their own function. So that was it was a lesson I didn't want to learn. But as a self-employed freelancer, I was really glad to learn it at this point in my career, as opposed to in another 20 or 30 years when I might not have the time or flexibility or resources to be as resilient.
I like that, man. Take the lessons that life gives you, even if it's not the one that you're looking for, right? That's powerful stuff.
It's like 2020 right there.
Yeah. So I know we're running out of time here, but I definitely wanted to ask you about WinWin. So you started this nonprofit, and maybe you could talk a little bit about, why someone might do something like that. I mean, this certainly it consumes your time and attention when, like you said, you don't have a consistent stream of income. It's not like you have a W-2 paycheck coming in. How should other people be thinking about pursuing passion projects like that? And maybe you could just describe what the organization does.
Sure. Yeah. So WinWin Entertainment is a 501c3. We're a national nonprofit, and we exist to bring smiles to kids in children's hospitals. And I put the focus on the kids in the hospitals because before the focus was on the entertainers. It was like, we connect entertainers to children. But at the end of the day, now we bring smiles to kids who need them. How we do that has changed. It used to be through in-person visits by entertainers, athletes, celebrities. Now, of course, it's through virtual visits. So we have 25 plus programs around the country at children's hospitals everywhere from, Indiana, Charleston, New York, Orange County, Phoenix, Reno, Minneapolis, all over the country. And what's even cooler now is we have performers from all over the country, because before you would have to have a performer like in Las Vegas go to a Las Vegas Children's Hospital. Now we can have a performer in Columbus, Ohio, Zoom in to Phoenix Children's Hospital, right? Which is pretty awesome. So we've really exploded in growth in the last year. Definitely a silver lining in my world of all this is that WinWin Entertainment, my nonprofit, has just, as I said, just exploded, both in the hospitals that we serve, the number of hospitals that we serve, because now none of them have external programming, right? They can't have patients, visitors. So they need what we do. And now performers have a lot more time to be able to give for these virtual shows. So that question of access now, like everyone has access, both parties. So we existed to connect these two parties that both had something to give to help the other. And now the access is so easy that it's just been really, really wonderful. It's been a nice silver lining. As far as like how I've done it, so again, gets back to the passion. Like, I'm so into WinWin Entertainment, and I'm so happy with it and proud of it that I just become this kind of evangelist, this ambassador for WinWin Entertainment, and people have just gotten involved. People have just people want to be involved in projects that generate good energy and excitement, and they want to be around people who are full of life and really enjoying what they do. So I'm proud that we don't have any paid staff. We don't pay any performers anything. We're 100% volunteer. And that's pretty remarkable when you think about the amount of visits that we've done. I mean, we have a lives touch document we always update. And I mean, we're like, way over 80,000 lives touched, having done this now for 10 years. So I would say the advice, or at least just a thought, is that WinWin Entertainment is not directly involved with what I do. Like, I'm a corporate event speaker, entertainer, host, and this is sending professional entertainers to children's hospitals in person or virtually. So it's not directly related, but it's tangentially related. And I think that's important because all of the stuff I do for my for-profit world naturally helps my nonprofit world, right? I do a corporate show for FedEx office. I sit next to the CEO on the flight back from Portugal. He learns all about WinWin Entertainment. Now FedEx office prints all of our flyers and slides them under the kids' rooms, to tell them what performer's coming, right? Because obviously we connected in my for-profit world, right? So I think as my for-profit career has grown, the nonprofit has grown as well, because I have access to more performers. When I had my show on the Strip, I think I was able to meet more performers. More performers knew who I was, and they knew like, oh yeah, Jeff's WinWin Entertainment is his thing. Like he's all about that. And I think it just naturally got people excited for it. I think appreciation is a big part of it. We talk now about how to show appreciation to our entertainers. You do one free show, you get a t-shirt. And then after that, you get this series of badges, right? So you get a badge after you hit 10, 25, 50. And then after 100 hospital visits, you're in the Century Club. We give out Entertainer of the Year awards for every city. So we really like to recognize people for their philanthropy. Same thing with the board. We try to recognize board members, volunteers, donors. Everybody who donates gets a handwritten thank you and all that. So, I don't know if that was just kind of a general brain dump on WinWin Entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of things, applicable things come out of that. I mean, certainly the way you started talking about, finding a silver lining in a otherwise dire situation. I mean, I think that's something we all can think about and apply. Like, oh, we're in this, revenues are down, customers are, whatever the issue is, there's an opportunity to adapt and to pivot slightly. And it also, I think strategically, even though I know you didn't start WinWin as a strategic thing to help your career, you did it because you're a passionate person, but doing something that is adjacent to what your profession is, it both help each other. And that's a really efficient way to think about utilization of time. Is if you're going to help the world, help it in a way that can kind of have this multiplying effect, is what I'm kind of hearing you say.
Absolutely. And I wrote a blog post on this about kind of why volunteering, and one of the biggest why volunteer right now. One of the biggest themes that keeps coming up is it gives you a sense of control in a world that is seemingly out of control, right? So things are like absolutely insane right now, and it seems like the world's spinning out of control. But volunteering gives you a sense of agency, of like, I did what I could for my little corner of the world to like make the world a better place today, right? So when you do that, when you volunteer, I feel like it not only gives you this perspective and this kind of shot like in the arm of zeal for life and fulfillment, but it also just kind of gives you that sense that you're still in control of your life. You still have the ability to impact people in a positive way, to affect people, to make the world a little bit brighter in whatever way you choose to do. And I think that's really important for all of us to remember right now and to embrace, largely for our mental health, right? Because it's just such an insane time.
That's awesome, man. Well, as we wrap up here, thanks so much for being on the show. You're, first of all, amazing and hilarious as always. Is there any parting wisdom, any last one thing you want to leave everybody with before we sign off?
Well, I just realized that my mic is not attached.
Jeff is holding up his microphone without.
I'm holding up. For those just listening, yes, my fancy microphone is not attached, but I do look cool, right? Fancy radio mic. And I had brought this shrubbery that I was hoping to work in here somewhere, but didn't get it on. Anyway. So parting wisdom. I would say probably the passion part, man, about instead of trying to find a passionate project, just work on becoming a more passionate person, and the projects will naturally take care of themselves. I think that's a really important point. I think people kind of look for that as the initiator of the passion. Like, what's that one thing that I just love so much? And that's the wrong way of thinking about it. I think that again, it's really more a result of who you are at your core. And that's going to be more enjoyable. And I think you're going to make a bigger impact thinking about it that way.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for the wisdom and the time today. Always good catching up with you, my friend. And we'll talk soon. And for everyone else listening, if you want to learn more about the show or appear as a guest, go to tedharrington.com/podcast. And we'll catch you next time.